Hello everyone. So thanks for being with us. I'm going to wait for a few minutes. We got Becky. Hi Nicole. So how everyone is doing? So do not hesitate to ask any question. I will try to jump on your question as much as I can when we're going to kick off today with our special guest. But so happy to have all of you guys. I'm waiting for a few seconds and we're going to kick off at 2 p.m. as initially planned. Oh, Colin from Vegas. Okay. Getting more people who are joining us. Hope everyone is fine and safe and enjoying your afternoon today. Like Dr. Brian used to tell me, thanks God it's Friday. It's been a very intense day today in the company. We're working on so many projects. I cannot wait to share with everyone. Hello everyone. Thanks for joining us. All right, it's 2 p.m. So here we go. So thanks all of you to join us for our skin and integrative dermatology Q&A with Dr. Kathleen Franca. So I'm Stéphane Colleux, President and CEO of the Dr. Brian Skincare and the Dr. Brian Foundation. And I'm going to have a special guest with Dr. Franca Kathleen. She's a medical doctor, specialist in dermatology, master in health science, and PhD in psychology. She practices dermatology at the Department of Dermatology and Cutaneous Surgery, University of Miami Miller School of Medicine. Her main areas of interest are integrative dermatology and psychodermatology. So Dr. Franca is part of our Skin Advisory Board, and we're going to ask her a lot of questions. And last time when she joined us, we had so much question we cannot keep on. So we thought it would be a great opportunity to have her again. So I'm going to ask her to join us in a few minutes. So please welcome her, and she's going to appear pretty soon. And here we go. Here we go. How are you, Dr.
Hello,
Franca?
Stefan. How are you?
How are you doing today? You doing good?
Yes, I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
Things safe and well. Have you been re-engaging your practice yet or not?
Yes, we are back. Yes, we are
You're
back
back?
to practice. Yes, we're
Okay.
taking all the precautions, and
And-
we have not many patients at the same time, and also offering appointments, in different hours now. I'm gonna be seeing some patients between 5 and 9 p.m. So that's something new too, and
Okay,
also
okay.
weekends.
And
So
also
we are
we can.
trying our best to accommodate everybody now.
Okay, but that's good. I'm glad that you're back with your patients and your practice. I think last time we had an amazing, interesting question talking about integrative dermatology. And just giving a quick introduction for people who just joined us, we all understood last time it was a combination between conventional dermatology and complementary dermatology. And I think it's having a better holistic approach of the dermatology and based on different parameters. And just for reminding everyone, it was physical, the biological, the psychological, the social, and the environmentals. And that's why I
Perfect. So
came
you learned.
yeah, the integrative dermatology. That's something we believe a lot that bring different expertise and different needs. But before starting, maybe you would like to share an additional thing about yourself, your credential or your expertise or something as a reminder of what integrative dermatology is, if you
Yes.
want to, before we kick off with our question.
Absolutely, Stefan. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all in good health and good spirits these days. And I'm Kathleen France. I'm a dermatologist. I practice at the University of Miami, as Stefan said. I'm also the president of the World Health Academy of Integrative Dermatology, which is a multi-professional academy dedicated to research and global awareness of this exciting and emerging field of study, which is the integrative dermatology field. And as you said very well, it's a field that where we combine, the conventional or traditional dermatologic therapies. We prescribe steroids, we prescribe topical treatments, lights, everything that is necessary for the patient, but we also combine this with complementary therapies that have scientific evidence. This is very important. We are not here discussing alternative medicine without scientific evidence. We're talking about complementary treatments that have scientific evidence. And this is what this new field is, exploring. And we have more studies coming. And, gladly we have, people like you that are interested in also, learning more about it and incorporating this to bring the best for our patients.
But that's what we like, by the way, we're Dr. Cynthia Lines, so scientific evidence is very important for us. So thank you also for being part of the Skin Advisory Board of Dr. Brands, because this expertise is very important for us as we see the future having a bigger holistic personalization and customization. And knowing that make me a perfect transition. We're going to shoot for the question because we had so many come up from our last time.
Let's go.
So let's shoot for the first one.
I'm sure we have a lot of exciting questions.
Let's shoot for the first one. How much of an impact does stress have on the skin? Can it be reversed?
Yes, that's a very interesting question. We have to remember that the skin is the largest organ of the human body and is highly sensitive to emotions. And there's actually a physical explanation for that. We do have a lot of nerve endings, that connects our nervous system to different organs, including the skin. So some people, when they get stressed, they have stomachache, others have high blood pressure, and others develop rashes or, for example, acne. We can also, you have to remember that, every time we get stressed, our body produces stress hormones, including cortisol, that may, also affect the skin, increasing oil production and making us prone, to develop pimples. And we also, so we know that there are several skin diseases that have been studied that are linked to stress, such as psoriasis, atopic dermatitis, acne, certain types of hair loss, itch, and pruritus. So we have individual groups of researchers exploring each one of these diseases and how, stress is linked to them. And we do have enough scientific evidence to say that stress is a trigger for many of these diseases. We also have to remember that, there are patients with truly psychiatric disorders that present with dermatological manifestations. For example, nail biting or hair pulling, and other people have other diseases such as they believe they have parasites under the skin, for example. These are psychiatric conditions that manifest through the skin. So these two are extremely connected. The skin and nervous system, they walk together. It's very important for us to remember that stress is not only, the isolated factor that can trigger a skin disorder. We also have to look into other factors such as genetic and environmental factors. But stress can certainly play a significant role, particularly for some certain people. And how can it be reversed? This is the second part of the question. Now. So yes, so we do, especially in the integrative medicine field and now integrative dermatology field, we are talking more about mind-body approaches such as meditation, yoga, tai chi, cognitive skills, some lifestyle interventions, as well as psychotherapy. And one of the topics that I like talking a little bit about is mindfulness, which is a concept very modern that a lot of people have been practicing. That means, mindfulness, the concept is, to focus your attention to the present moment, developing coping strategies such as meditation and deep breathing, to make you focus on the present. And we have some new studies showing, how mindfulness can be associated with dermatological intervention. So mindfulness nowadays is considered a complementary treatment for certain skin diseases. We do have studies on psoriasis, for example, and hair loss showing positive results when patients go to the mindfulness training, they practice mindfulness in their daily life, they tend to cope better with these diseases. So this is like one way that we can say that we can reverse, stress and help us to have a better skin. There are formal mindfulness training programs, where some even universities, like big universities like Harvard, even University of Miami. I myself, I did a course 2 years ago. They did a study enrolling physicians to see, how we first to teach us about mindfulness, but also to see how could reduce our stress levels. So it was an 8-week. This is a protocol. It's an 8-week course training where you go through all the meditation sessions, guided meditation, you do exercises at home, and you get trained in mindfulness, which is really interesting. But we also have nowadays many, online courses available, books talking about it, even videos with guided meditations available in different social platforms.
So
So
which
this is
one you
one
would
way of,
suggest for the people who is watching us? Any social video platform that you have in
yeah,
mind that you would suggest?
YouTube has some interesting mindfulness guided meditations
Okay,
that you can,
but
type mindfulness, look into the more, you're gonna find some interesting ones there that
eh,
at least guides you. There are certain types of mindfulness meditation that we practice. For example, the body scan, where you close your eyes, you breathe, you focus in different parts of your body. That YouTube offered certain a lot of videos that show that type of meditation.
okay, and just can you give you a tips, because for you, I'm sure you have very active life. I know you're doing some lecture, you're traveling, but you have your practice, and also you have to do your research as well, and you have your personal life. So I'm sure you are stressed like any of us. So what is your recipe for
Absolutely.
yourself? What do you do?
Myself, I exercise. I think exercise is mandatory. It's another way. It's my,
How many
find
times you
something that you like.
how many you
Yeah, I
how
try
many
to do
days you
every day.
exercise?
Every day, half an hour.
Half an
Every
hour
day, half an hour.
in the morning,
Something
or
that I
yeah?
found for myself was good was spinning bike, something that I like. And I always say to my patients, try to find something that you like. Be active, at least half an hour every day. Find something that you like. If you don't like anything, perhaps walking. Walk for 15 minutes. When you get 15 minutes, it's not too much. You come back.
Oh,
So that's a way to start, and find something that you like. Yoga. If you like yoga, if you like Pilates, if you like, more heavy exercises, Zumba classes, try to experiment different things to see what you like. Myself, I particularly like spinning. This is something I've been doing for many years. And also, after being trained in mindfulness, I think that's very helpful. It requires some discipline. You have to be every day, at least for 15 minutes meditating, but that's very important to take that time off for yourself and, to focus on the present moment so you can,
and,
cope with
and
your stress.
I'm very intrigued to hear you as a physician, how you guide a patient to follow this guideline, because at the end it's always easy to say the right things, like your kids, you
Yes.
should not hit that, but we know it's not going to follow up. But in terms of exercises, I understand the balance between, and we need to experience different things, like you said. And if I'm not like physical exercises, I can still walk, and I should walk because just to appreciate and take some time and quality time for me. But for meditation, I think it's more tricky because I can include this experience for myself. It's something I always wanted to do. And I've
Uh-huh.
been very lucky enough to start yoga because of Dr. Brands, who very clientele that was very well known, like Madonna, invited him to do it. And then he has been fully engaged with yoga. But then the meditation part, I know it was a big struggle for him to, lock
Mm-hmm.
and be part of this ability. And also, I can see this for myself. So, how do you guide? Because meditation, I think it's a big word, but at the end, where do we start? Because it's not as easy that, okay, I'm going to walk now, and maybe tomorrow I could even run a little bit. And I know that's something that is more accessible for anyone. But when
Yes,
you
for
do
everybody.
meditation, I don't
Yes.
think it's an easy way to start. So, how do we
You're
do it?
right. It's not easy for everybody, especially in the beginning. It requires discipline. You need to be motivated. First, it's something you really have to do it and commit. That's why these programs, formal programs that teach you mindfulness, the 8 weeks one with persistence, you got in a group, you have more people around you. So that's a way I found to myself, because I try mindfulness before, just guided meditations before, and I didn't have that discipline. I didn't know much about it. But the moment I had the opportunity to be, I would say, trained and pursue a course that lasts 8 weeks, and I committed, I said, no, for these 8 weeks, I'm going to do it every day for 50 minutes. That's how my brain switched, because our brain learns things. We do have this neuroplasticity that make us learn things. So it's persistence, it's persistence.
Well,
First, obviously, you need to see something that you want to do it. And second is commitment, persistence, and discipline. And my suggestion is, what worked for me was to complete, a mindfulness course, a full course of the 8 weeks training. That
but
was the one that was, established.
but just for me, it just also to give some guideline to everyone because where to start.
Yes.
You did it before. Let's go to YouTube to see some tutorial, and probably is the best way to get,
Yes.
because everything I look after on the apps and everything you have to pay, and maybe not everyone is willing to commit it at the beginning because you don't even know something you're going to. So okay, we'll go to YouTube. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's a way at least to get you, at least for you to know more about it and, see if it's something that you would like to pursue more seriously. And I know people that just with those, they are fine. Sometimes they download apps on the phone and they say, I just meditate through that and I'm good. So it's really personal. Some people respond quickly and others need more training.
No, you're right. You're right. It's true. So give me, now it brings me to the second question, which I think is very important for a lot of people, is food. As we know, we have, when we just getting born, that's the first thing we enjoy as a human being. And I would say maybe until the last day, it's probably one of the things we enjoy the most is still eating. So food is very important in our lifestyle for all of us. But I know also it can have a lot of consequences about our skins, but our moods, on anything as a human being. Like you said, the human body and organs is the biggest one. So we had some question about the food, about specific type of food and how they affect the skin, particularly when it comes to acne. So are there specific ingredients that trigger acne? And many people ask about sugar and chocolate. So I give you an example that has been brought to our attention. Does the milk versus the dark make a difference? And how we navigate, and what is your opinion on this?
Okay, all right. It's a great question. In fact, there's more recent research. Yes, more recent research has provided strong support that diet has a potential role in acne, and certain foods such as dairy foods, dairy products, and also high glycemic foods like sugar. Anything that has sugar could potentially trigger acne. And particularly this Western diet, we like a lot of dairy and sugar, So foods like white bread, white rice, they are rapidly absorbed and lead to high levels of glucose, and insulin in our body. And those could trigger the acne. Chocolate, something that I think everybody likes, or almost everybody likes. It's really hard to live without a piece of chocolate here and there. Chocolate has many good properties. We know that it's rich in antioxidants, especially flavonoids, and it seems to have protective factors against cardiovascular diseases, but doesn't have the same benefit if you already have acne. Some recent studies have investigated the role of chocolate in acne, and it seems that yes, chocolate may trigger acne or worsen your acne if you already have it. In the initial studies, we're talking about chocolate in general. And if you think about the milk chocolate, you're going to go back to the sugar, to the dairy, to the, to the things we just spoke, and would be logical that the milk chocolate would have, could trigger acne. But also, there were two groups of researchers. One that published a study in 2016 in the International Journal of Dermatology. The name of the study is Dark Chocolate Exacerbates Acne. So this study, they gave 25 grams of 99% dark chocolate every day for 4 weeks to the participants. And then they found that, yeah, indeed exacerbated the acne in those patients. They already had acne-prone skin, but the chocolate in that occasion exacerbated. And then in 2018, another group published a new study, this time in the Journal of Clinical Aesthetic Dermatology. And also in this study, they gave 10 grams, a little bit less of chocolate, 70%, the dark chocolate, and they gave to the participants after lunch for 4 weeks and followed these patients. And in the end, also, they found an exacerbation of acne. So nowadays, even the dark chocolate could, we can say that could trigger acne.
Okay, yeah, but okay, I'm going to try to simplify a little bit for us to navigate, because at the end of the day, we all understood integrative dermatology will request a special diagnostic based on the individual, and personalization, customization. That's the beauty of the integrative dermatology, to perceive every individual in specific matters. But now, because of the purpose of these 30 minutes that we can enjoy all your knowledge and expertise, I just want to concise a little bit your answers, just to make sure we got at least some good indicator that we can take in our regular lifestyle. So what could trigger more acne in terms of ingredient? There is some specific ingredient that's for sure, whatever who I am as an individual person, might develop more acne than the others. You mentioned glucose. Glucose with
Yes.
high level with creatine. And
Yes.
so everything with high glucose, you won't recommend, because also what I understood also with sugar we understand is bad, it could be, but also it's good to give you some energy. So what's the balance and what you can give us in terms just a kind of good tips
Yes.
that we can use it in our regular life? What will be?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. You know, it's again, as you said perfectly, we need, you know, to individualize each case. There are people that are more tolerant, people that are less tolerant, and you always say, you know, to patients to experiment, you know, do like reduce the quantity, for example. If they think that, okay, every time I eat this chocolate, I have acne, I said, okay, take it out for 2 weeks, see if this is really gonna, you know, clear acne. We're gonna see from there. So depending on the product, depending if something that you really like, you can experiment, you know, to see if that's something that's really triggering for you. In general, what we know from literature, yes, sugar, dairy, chocolate, these things, we do have studies, you know, that obviously are done in certain groups of people that these things can trigger acne, particularly if you already have an acne prone skin. So if, you know, some of these studies, the participants already have like a mild acne, and once they start taking these foods, they had, you know, an increase in the number of lesions. So, but again, it's, you know, you should, you know, I would say to you, balance is the key. I never say to my patients, I'm a person that I always say, oh, I prohibit you of this. No, you're never going to hear this from me. I say balance is the key. I say, you know, if you want to eat small amounts. If it's something that you particularly think that is bad for you, you know, let's try to take it out for 2 weeks, see if you feel better. You can try to take it again, and you let me know, and we're going to work together to see if this particular food is bad for you for this occasion. You know, but, you know, balance, because, you know, there is also individuals that, you know, have more tolerance or less tolerance to certain types of
certain paraxin. But also we learn also in skincare world, because sugar create glycation. The glycation break the fibroblast of the collagen, so we're losing elasticity and we're accelerating the aging process. But for people who barely don't know, which I learned me from my years and being with Dr. Brands, I know he wrote a book. I love this one. Is called 10 Minutes, 10 Years. And why? Because you can take the book at any, it's not like you read a regular book from page 1 until the end, but you can take it at any time and you will hear or learn something about any tips that you could use during your lifestyle. And because he was talking about glycation, and tell me if I'm wrong, but chocolate, if you have the choice, let's use a dark chocolate with high percentage of cacao, which is 85%.
Yeah, absolutely. It has more flavonoids.
If you got an apple, you got, you know, the yellow, the green, and the more sweets. You use the green one, which is obviously the one that's less sugar and sweets, which at the end of the day will create less damage for you.
But it's very important also to keep an eye on science, because things change. I remember years ago, the first study that they did in chocolate and acne said, no, there's no correlation. So for many years, dermatologists will say to patients, no problem, you can take chocolate, that doesn't cause acne. And then, you know, with time and people exploring the subject, you know, that's what I'm saying, these two studies are 2016 and 2018, and there's probably more coming. So it's always important for us to follow the science, follow the methods. Some studies are good, some we say that are not so strong, but there's always new things coming. And, you know, even the dermatologist's opinion change with time based on the new data available.
New database,
so, you know, something that I might say to you today, maybe in 10 years is not going to be the same. Maybe they're going to come with a new explanation that, you know, is not going to be like this. This is the beauty of science. And this is what makes
the beauty of science. And the life and the world. We're all evolving one way to another. That's the beauty of it. At least we're moving and we're progressing and we're learning. But just for close the chapter on the chocolates, we know we got white, milk, and dark chocolate.
Yes.
In the data, I just want to understand something. There is one is better than the others, or doesn't matter at the end of the day?
I would say to you, yeah, white is the worst, milk in the middle, and dark will be better. You know, based on antioxidant properties and, you know, cardiovascular, maybe maybe you develop some pimples, but your heart might be protected. So,
Okay,
and you're gonna get
but you
energy.
say
It's
now you
really,
say
as I say again, it's balance. We all, we all eat a little bit of chocolate here and there, and this is part of
but
the balance and normal life. We have the
okay,
information, we have the science to help us, and for particular cases, we sit, we discuss, we present. I know some people are more they have more discipline. They say I don't want to take it, so we are here to educate them. But at the same time, especially I deal with a lot of teenagers. They say, oh
I
doctor, I
know, I
want
know.
to eat, and I say, okay,
Okay,
let's a little bit every day. Let's favor the
a little
dark
bit
one.
less a day. But at least all of you guys, if you can switch from the white and the milk to the dark, you're on a good track.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah, you have
that
other good properties
that's
for
the
your health.
conclusion.
Absolutely.
So about food and specific food, also, do you have any tips to share what can trigger rosacea? Because rosacea, I know, can be triggered also by food and the diet
Yes.
that you having. So, what would
Yes.
be your advice and what you will give
Absolutely.
us?
Let's speak a little bit about rosacea so people can understand. It's a common skin disorder, particularly in fair skinned individuals. And, some people develop that blushing. They look like have a little bit of sunburn. It's a chronic disease of the skin. And we know that certain foods and drinks, also cannot forget the drinks, can trigger rosacea. There was a study conducted by the National Rosacea Society, and in this study, 78% of adults with rosacea reported that they made changes in the diet. And in this group, 95% said that they improved of the rosacea after changing the diet. So diet is very important, for patients with rosacea. I really take the time, sit and talk to them and explain what the disease is and the things that they should avoid. So let's go over now certain, foods and drinks that people should avoid, people that
Yeah,
have this condition should avoid. One
which
of
one?
them is alcohol.
Oh,
So even small amounts of alcohol can trigger symptoms of this flushing and redness. This include wine, liquor, or other alcoholic beverages such as champagne, vodka, even beer. Also, some hot drinks such as coffee, tea, or hot chocolate could also, trigger these flare-ups of rosacea. So this is, speaking about beverages. Now jumping to spicy foods,
so only water
also this
to
could be.
simplify. Only water in a decent
Yeah, I would say,
temperature. That's the only thing. Okay,
yeah, water,
in a
juices, like my natural juices,
in a regular
something like
temperature.
cold.
Okay.
Exactly, exactly. And also, spicy foods also, can be a problem, such as different types of like chili pepper, hot sauce, Tabasco pepper. Those are, those spicy foods also play a significant role in rosacea. You see some people that they eat immediately, like a few minutes later, they have the flushing, the rosacea flushing.
Okay, no,
And to
do we see more?
finalize,
Do we see more
yeah, go ahead.
rosacea in India or China when we know they got a lot of spicy food based on their current routine thing? Do we think rosacea is a bigger concern in this region of the world, or at the end of the day, the data doesn't show?
Actually, no, because of their skin type. Rosacea is more prevalent in fair skin types. So you're gonna see more in European population. You're gonna see more. You see a right prevalence here in the U.S. You see less in India and less in other countries because of the skin type. I would say this is one of the reasons that these particular populations, they eat more this type of food, but there are not many cases of rosacea there. Other types of food, what we call the cinnamaldehyde foods. There are things that give the cinnamon flavor to certain foods. Cinnamon itself could be a problem, but also some citrus foods, tomatoes, and again the chocolate here could be a potential trigger for rosacea. So these are the main ones we know. We always tell patients to avoid.
That just someone would jump this question. What about lactose-free Greek yogurts? Can that aggravate acne or not? Is it an issue, these kind of products?
Well, lactose typically does not cause acne, so not something that we know the lactose could be interfere in acne. People that are lactose intolerant, they may develop diarrhea or other, GI symptoms, but no acne. We don't have a correlation between those two. And, the Greek yogurt, there are no particular studies on Greek yogurt and acne, but considering everything we spoke about dairy products, this could contribute to acne, to worsen acne in certain individuals, We
Okay.
have, so we need
Okay.
to consider this part. But lactose itself shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, okay. So, and what can we say about adaptogens and how we can benefit from them, especially in skincare? What do you think could be very good and use from your knowledge and your expertise?
Well, the adaptogens, they're actually nothing new. This is a type of herbal medicine that has deep roots in traditional Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine. And this term actually was created in the past century. 1947 was the first time they were talking about these adaptogens. And, this is a way that we use to describe these medicinal herbs and botanical extracts that are used to restore the balance in the body. Some people are ingest this type of herbs and botanical extracts, but also recently the skincare industry has been incorporating this type
Yeah.
of natural components into their skincare lines, to treat different types of even diseases, things that could irritate the skin. The idea is that these adaptogens could, make the skin better. The question is, there are, a couple of ones that are being studied, with different names like rhodiola rosea, moringa, marshmallow root. But, I think, it's still unclear what is exactly the role of these adaptogens in skincare products. Maybe they could be just working as antioxidants,
Hmm.
because the science is still being developed to find out if they really have these adaptogens properties in skincare or if they are potential good antioxidants. And another thing that is very important to remember is that need to be cautious with possible contact dermatitis, because some of these are natural, but it doesn't, could still cause contact dermatitis in certain patients. So I would say to you, it's an interesting topic that we are learning more about now, but we
Yeah.
need a little bit more science to see what is good and what is bad
But it's
for the skin
interesting because
particularly.
but this kind of topic is being taken by all the industry of beauty lately because people being
Yes.
inspired and also start understanding a better new approach. And based on that,
Mm-hmm.
it was quite interesting to hear your first insight and feedback. So I know some people have been joining us, guys, and so just to tell you, you need to quit most everything you have been eating if you want to keep and maintain your beautiful, glowing, and instant. I know because we have some people from Istanbul and people from Paris who join
Uh-huh.
us, and you should quit
Uh-huh.
alcohol if you don't want to increase more rosacea if you have already some concern. But it depends on your skin type. I'm just trying to joke here. Just we're going to shoot and having we still it's already 2:31, but I would like to ask one extra question
Sure.
that has been raised last time,
Sure.
and I hope the person is with us today. Someone shared that due to thyroid conditions, their
Okay.
skin tends to get very dry and red. What are the
Mm-hmm.
best steps for them to take in their daily life and skincare routine?
Absolutely. So we know the thyroid hormone is very important to regulate, the skin in general, plays a significant role. So what our follower described, that she or he has hypothyroidism and her skin is dry, that's not so uncommon to hear. So this is a scenario where the person has a more sensitive skin, more prone to allergies and irritations. And we know that these flare-ups and these irritations can be triggered by even the littlest thing, for example, removing the makeup. So it's very important for these type of patients to have a very consistent routine to keep the skin calm, clear, and balanced. And this is what we always say is using the right products. And I also say to my patients, you don't have to use many products. Let's be simple. Let's choose the right ones. But so you can keep a routine. So I would recommend for a patient like this, for example, a cleansing lotion, just to remove at night, remove the makeup, and in the morning, just a cleansing lotion, something more neutral. Also, for this person to apply a fragrance-free moisturizer in the
Okay.
morning and at night. We know that there are many moisturizers out there that does not contain synthetic fragrances that could cause irritation and more allergies. Also avoid products with alcohol and synthetic dyes. So go for the fragrance-free ones and try to reduce the chemicals that are present inside of the products. And also it's very important for this person to use a good sunscreen. And for these patients that has this type of skin, I would recommend, sunscreens with zinc oxide that are the ones that tend to irritate less the skin. These sunscreens, we call these physical sunscreens. They don't have like chemical substances. The titanium dioxide sunscreens could be also an option, but we know that medium and darker skin tones, that it can leave the skin like a white cast. So my preference would be for a zinc oxide sunscreen that is available with many options in the market. So keep things simple, go for fragrance-free and less chemicals, and let's,
But thank you. Thanks for these tips. And make me feel good because we're working on a lot of new upgraded and update of new products, like the one you said for the SPF. We just have a new line, Brightest Wave, about brightening when we put an SPF, which is going to have brightening agents on top of having an SPF. We hope we're waiting for the labs to get 50 plus, but we use only the zinc for the purpose you say it, but also because it's much more environmental as well, because the other one is not really environmental because you get some residue if you go to the water. So it's something I'm glad to hear that, because meaning we're taking some wise decision internally with the company. But I think I want to thank you. I don't want to take more of your time. I know we had 30 minutes together. It was so nice to see you, to hear from you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
So glad.
It was a great pleasure, and I'll see you all soon. Yeah, I'll be back soon.
We hope so. We look forward, and thank you. I'm glad you're back, by the way, with your practice and your patients. And for everyone, just to let you know, we're doing also some skin consultation, and you can sign up for a free one-to-one with our Dr. Brand skincare experts. And we will post a story after this live with a swipe up for you to book your own if you want to. It's just free, just get advice or to continue some conversation with some of the experts that will be able to answer to any concern or question you have. So thank you for joining us today. It was great. And thanks again, Dr. Franca, to join us. Look forward for our next one.
Thank you so much, Stefan. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Wish you a wonderful day, and I see you all soon.
Soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.